Welcome to the Let's Get Vulnerable podcast with me, your host, Dr. Morgan Anderson, clinical psychologist, relationship coach, love expert, creator of the ESL relationship method, and athletic wear connoisseur. My mission is to help you raise your self-worth, have great relationships, and step confidently into the next level of your life. Each week, 2 episodes will air featuring expert advice, live coaching, and tips showing you exactly how to improve your life and attract great relationships. You deserve to feel empowered, secure, and loved. So buckle up and let's get vulnerable. Hello and welcome to a special episode of the Let's Get Vulnerable podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Morgan Anderson, and today's episode, I am making it my mission to help there be no more boring first dates. My mission is to set you up for success when you're going on that first date. I'm going to give you some mindset things. I'm going to talk about framing the first date, how you want to show up, what's important to do in preparation. And I'm also going to give you 10 meaningful first date questions, because how many of us have been on that first date? It feels like a job interview. It feels like you've had this conversation a million times. I'm over it. I want you to feel like you can experience genuine connection and really get to know someone instead of like you're going through a job interview. So lots to do in this episode. Let's go ahead and dive right in. I do want to make sure that you know that I am hosting a live event. This is the first time we've been able to do a live event because of the pandemic, of course. I've wanted to do this for years. I've dreamed about it. It's finally happening. We're doing it in Bozeman, Montana. Montana is so special to me. It's where I grew up. It's an incredibly beautiful place, perfect for transformation. And this event is going to be focused on giving you what you need to rewire your brain for a healthy relationship and giving you that community and that space to feel safe as you're doing the deep work. So you don't want to miss this. I'm so excited. We already are over halfway full. So if you know you're interested, I want to encourage you to sign up ASAP. And we do have a special discount code for you where you can actually get $200 off of the retreat. So we want to do that just so we make sure as many people who need this as possible can come. So the code for that is Last Chance 2022. And we will be putting that in the show notes, all the information for the retreat. But it would be my honor and privilege to see you in Bozeman and have you in the room with us and just to give you what you need to heal deeply, not just the surface level of knowing what you should do, but actually experience deep transformation. I would love to be your coach and guide in that experience. Look at the info in the show notes. Can't wait to see you there. All right, let's get into today's episode. As I said, no more boring first dates. So the first part I need to talk about is your mindset. Okay. When we think about a first date, there can be all of this anxious energy, all this excitement. Some of us are in this place of forecasting, fortune telling, and we're saying that, oh, this could be the one. Maybe this is it. And we end up putting so much pressure on a first interaction. What I always tell the women inside of the Empowered.Secure.Loved program is you want to show up with no expectations and absolute clarity on your standards. When we show up with no expectations, that means we're not expecting the date to go a certain way. We're not expecting that we're going to hit it off. We're not expecting that this is our future partner. We're simply showing up with zero expectations, but we do have clarity on the standards for what we desire and what it is that we're looking for in a partner and how we want to feel in a relationship. Okay. So, no expectations, clarity on your standards. You want to have the energy of, wow, I'm going to connect with another human being, and I have no idea what this connection will be, but I care about connection. I care about giving myself the opportunity to connect and to potentially experience a life partnership, right? Like I care about setting myself up for that opportunity. So I'm going to show up with the understanding that I have no idea what will come of it. I have zero expectations. Along with zero expectations, you want to practice curiosity and high levels of curiosity with yourself. So asking yourself, how do I feel in the presence of this person? What's coming up for me as I'm here on this date? Do I enjoy this person's company? Right? And then you want to have high levels of curiosity for the other person as well. And you want to be tuned into getting to know them and practicing that curiosity of, well, what's important to them and what are they looking for, and being tuned in to them as well. And when we can feel into curiosity, it will help us let go of any anxiety, any nerves. It brings us into the present moment when we can simply be curious and we can be that gentle observer, right? The quiet observer, gentle observer of what's going on internally for us, and also what's going on for this person. How can I be in the presence of them and just get to know them as a human without any expectations? And what I also want you to think about, this is my last mindset piece here. This is really important stuff. I want you to think about people need to earn your vulnerability. So some of y'all listening, you've shown up to dates. This was me in the past. You show up to dates and you share everything. You talk about your childhood and your relationship history, give them the full rundown of, well, this happened at this age. And then I went through that breakup, and then this horrible thing happened, and then that. I want you to remember, people need to earn your vulnerability. You deserve to be able to share intentionally and to share with people who can hold space for your vulnerability, and people who know how to validate, who can respond well, people who have the emotional capacity to appreciate your vulnerability. And on a first date, you simply don't have enough data yet to know if this person has earned your vulnerability, right? With all my clients, I talk about, you have to be the love scientist. You got to put on the lab coat. You are being the scientist of the connection. You're gathering the data. And then when you've gathered enough data and you realize, oh, this person does have emotional capacity, they do have space, they're able to validate, they can communicate well, then by all means, you can share intentionally. All right. One final bonus mindset tip. This one's huge. Oh my gosh. Y'all need to hear this. I know I needed to back in the day. Drop the perfectionism. I think so many of us, men and women and everyone, we all can think up these ideas of how a date is supposed to go and how we're supposed to be and how the connection is supposed to feel. And we have rom-coms to thank for this. We have our, society and what we believe romance is, and certainly codependency being painted as the goal in a lot of our culture. This idea that you meet this person and the heavens open up and, oh my gosh, they're the one, and immediately. That's not how it works in a healthy relationship. So I would want you to drop, once again, it goes back to expectations, but it goes back to just dropping models that you've learned that are unhealthy And then just drop the perfectionism. Just know that, of course, there's going to be things that don't go right. And you're human. This other person is human. You want a partner that's also understanding if you make a mistake, right? It's good to gather that data when things don't go perfectly and being able to see how someone navigates that with you. I can think about one of my best early dates with my partner was this beach day that we planned. And we're there and we're strolling the beach, and all of a sudden it's a thunderstorm. And we had this whole thing planned, and the rain's pouring, and there's lightning, and etc. And how did we react? He handled it with grace, and we ended up taking photos of the rain, and we went, and instead of having a picnic outdoors, we go inside to this great little seafood place. Like, how do people handle things when they don't go as planned? And how can you be compassionate to yourself if you make a mistake or you don't show up as your best self? Like, you are human, and so is the other person. And being able to show up with self-compassion, grace, hopefully a little bit of humor, that always helps. Like, being able to show up that way is actually really good data for the rest of the relationship, right? Perfectionism comes from a desire to control. And it's this belief that if I can control things and make it go just so, then everything's going to work out. And guess what? That really prevents us from true connection, prevents us from vulnerability, prevents us from relationships that last. So drop the perfectionism, drop the old rom-com relationship models, show up as a human with a ton of self-compassion, grace, and hopefully a little bit of humor. All right, y'all. I hope that helped with your dating mindset. And now for the fun part of this episode, I want to give you 10 questions you can ask. No more boring first dates, okay? What you want to think about is, what do I genuinely want the answer to? What am I actually curious about with this person? And one thing that I find really fascinating is we all have these questions that we think that we're supposed to ask. And a lot of times we even have the answers sort of prepared. And what that does is it disconnects us from being in the moment, and it disconnects us from real vulnerability and being who we really are. So these questions are designed to help you shake up the standard date, to actually connect with someone. And I do want to give this little caveat. Please don't ask all of these questions on a first date. It would be way too much for a first date conversation. My hope is that this gives you some ideas about deeper questions and things that you could ask that would be fun. And maybe you pick a few from this list. My gut also tells me that there's certain questions on here that you would probably only venture to ask about if the date was going well. Remember, people earn your vulnerability. And there's certain things you probably aren't going to discuss unless it's feeling good and the connection is going well and the data that you've gathered supports asking these questions. So I saved some of those deeper ones for the end of the list. But let's get into it. 10 questions for no more boring first dates, okay? The first question you could ask someone is, what are you most excited about right now? Very interesting. This tells you some things. It tells you, do they have excitement in their life, or do they have some way that they're creating some fulfillment? And it would tell you a little bit about what they're interested in. And also what's pretty fun is you get to see them talk about something that they're excited about. And that'll tell you a little bit about their personality and just how they express themselves when they're excited about something. All right. The second question, this one's probably a little bit deep, but could just be fun. You can say, so tell me about your favorite memory from childhood or your happiest childhood memory? Do you know what it is? That's a really interesting one. It can kind of tell us a little bit about what someone experienced growing up and what was something positive. A lot of times we're like, well, what happened in your childhood? Or, what was your trauma? Let's not go there on a first date. Let's tune into, well, what was great for you, or what was something that was really happy for you in your childhood. The third question, I like this one. It's, what do you do to practice self-care? Okay. Why do I ask this? Why am I curious? Quite a few things. Number one, it's going to tell me where their self-worth is at. If they're practicing self-care, that means they probably have a pretty good sense of self-worth, and they know that they're worthy of spending time caring for themselves. I also want to know, because it's going to tell me, have they created the boundaries in their life to honor caring for themselves, right? And I think it's also really telling just what's important to them, like what makes them feel like their cup is full. That's just good to know about someone, right? So lots of data you can get from that question. Question number 4. What would your ideal day consist of if anything was possible? What would your ideal day consist of if anything was possible? What a fun question. It's going to tell you what's important to them, once again, what fills up their cup. You're going to get keyed into their core values, etc. And I will say that when people say they don't know, or, oh man, I've never thought about it, or when you ask, what do you do for self-care? And they're like, I don't do self-care. That's really important data, right? You're kind of learning like, oh, okay, this person might be disconnected from themselves. Maybe they're not really aware of who they are. Maybe they have some numbing going on or some distracting, and they don't have a ton of self-awareness. So really great questions to ask. Number 5. This one's fun. Tell me, are you aware of your love language? I like love languages for a first date over attachment styles, because attachment styles, we're going to go into your childhood and all the things. But with a love language, it's a little bit more playful. It's a little bit more fun. To me, more appropriate for a first date conversation. And if they don't know what the love languages are, then you get to tell them, and it's kind of a fun discussion, right? Question number 6. Do you enjoy your career? And yes or no, tell me why. So, this could be a whole episode. I used to think, okay, I have to have someone who's super successful, and I was so worried about them being super driven and etc. But that was my own stuff of like, I needed that for myself. So very interesting to ask that question and to realize what really matters in people's career lives is that they feel in alignment, and they feel like they have some kind of purpose, and that there's some kind of enjoyment that they get out of work. And that's not the case for everyone, and that's also okay. This would go back into some core values about partnership and what really matters for you. But instead of saying like, how much money do you make, which I know hopefully none of us would ask that on a first date. But being curious, do you like what you do? Do you get some fulfillment? Do you get some purpose out of what you do? That can be a really great first date question. All right. Question number 7. What do you feel like your core values are in life? You could say your top 2 core values. Fascinating, right? And we're getting towards the bottom of the list. Like I said, some deeper questions. You're probably going to ask these if things are going well. And examples of that could be freedom, family, fitness, travel, faith. I'm like all these F words, right? But Getting to know people's core values is really helpful. You get to see, is there some alignment? Question number 8, how do you feel when you deal with conflict? Once again, a little bit deeper, but it's a great question. And if people don't know, that's also kind of interesting to note. Oh, they're not really sure how they handle conflict. What's really cool if you ask that question is if someone takes ownership and they say, conflict is something I'm working on. I feel like I'm a recovering people pleaser. I'm learning how to deal with conflict better. That's a great answer in my book, right? Someone who can take ownership. If you're asking someone questions and they're just coming across as perfect and oh, everything's great and I'm this amazing person, let me tell you, what seems too good to be true is too good to be true. And you have to look out for that. We need people who are honest, who take ownership of what they're really working on. Okay. Question number 9. What top 3 qualities are you looking for in a partner? Deeper question, something you can be really curious about. Very important to discuss because you get to know what's really important to this person. Is there some alignment with what I bring to the table? Question number 10, what are you looking for currently? Are you open to something serious if it develops? I love this question because to me, it's a wonderful way to simply be curious and to gather some data up front about what someone tells you. And when you get to a securely attached place, the answer to that question will help you determine if you continue to invest energy in getting to know this person. When you become securely attached and you ask that question and they say, well, actually, I'm just looking for something casual. I actually am not looking for a long-term relationship. I just want to have fun. The securely attached version of you gets to say, oh, that doesn't sound like it's in alignment with what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is, right? Because if you're anxiously attached, you're going to hear that answer and go, ooh, it's a challenge. I can make you love me, right? So really important that when we ask that question, we're coming from this securely attached place and we believe people when they tell us what they're looking for. And I think it's really helpful. It's like you're dating, you're on this date, you're together. It's good to know, is this something that's worth continuing? And if we know from the start that the kind of relationship that we want is not going to line up, better to end it than to continue to invest. The metaphor I love is with houses. So if we think about, hey, you have 2 people and they're both trying to build a relationship house, and one person wants to build a modern farmhouse and the other person wants to build a condo in the city, right? If what each person wants to build, the kinds of relationships that they want to build are too different, there's not going to be enough overlap in order to build what each other want. I think about this too in terms of relationship structures, in terms of having children or not having children. Some of those core frameworks in a relationship, if those things don't actually match up, you really can't build something together. So it's super helpful to gather some of that data early on. All right, I hope you like the 10 questions. I am going to create a handout where you can just have these 10 questions because I think that would be helpful. I really would have benefited from that. So stay tuned for that handout. I'm going to try to include it in the show notes as soon as that gets done. But remember, these 10 questions, you would not want to ask all of these on a first date. Please don't go on your first date and bring the handout and just ask all the questions. It would be too much. This is simply a list here to give you some ideas to make you realize you can ask deep questions. You can ask questions that you actually want to know the answer to. All right. And of course, we have some spots open in the Empowered.Secure.Loved program. This is the framework that I have developed to help anybody move towards a secure attachment style and be able to attract a healthy relationship. And if you're struggling in the dating world, if you're going on all the dates and they're not going anywhere, or you keep attracting people that you know are not good for you, that are not going to help you build the kind of relationship house that you want to build, I just want to encourage you to apply to the program, and you can get more information that way. And make sure you take action sooner rather than later. The longer we procrastinate on getting help, I think the more that we cause ourselves stress and anxiety and we stay stuck in our patterns. Sometimes, in order to change, all it takes is admitting we need help and taking the first step towards getting the help. And that first step is applying to the program, get some information. It is a no pressure call that you can have with our program advisor. So if you know you need to get off the dating roller coaster, you need to learn how to become securely attached, apply now. And that link will also be in the show notes. All right, y'all. I appreciate you. I hope you liked this episode. And of course, I'm wishing you high self-worth and great relationships. I'll talk with you soon.